and welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show. About 10:30 on the East Coast right now. It's totem pole time, and for the first time ever, Brett Scott, your executive producer, here on the program.
I'm here in front of the camera with you, Cam, usually behind the camera.
Exactly.
But, we're going to have some fun.
Yes, we are. We are power ranking the most insufferable fan bases in sports, Brett. You have a unique list. I have a unique list. The Ravens are not mentioned. Joe Flacco is not mentioned in any of this.
The Ravens might need an honorable mention just because of you, Cam.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, whatever you say.
Whatever.
Let's go to what the plan is. So I'm going to say my number 5. You'll say your number 5, and we'll just go down the line from there. All right, so we'll explain our reasoning, and folks at home, throw in your comments. Who are some fans that you just can't deal with? We'll throw them up throughout the totem pole segment here. Let's get to my number 5, and it's the Vancouver Canucks, and you were kind of questioning this one.
I'm not questioning. I need you to explain this one.
Okay.
I like hockey in person, but ever since the lockout, it's not on TV that much. I just don't follow hockey anymore.
So this one is a little dated, but the Vancouver Canucks, most notably, played the Boston Bruins in the summer of 2011 in the Stanley Cup Finals, and when the Canucks lost, their fans set crap on fire, looted stores, and by the way, this is something that happened back in 2004 too. So
if we're putting looting and stuff like that as a criteria,
yes.
The West Virginia Mountaineers should probably be an honorable mention.
HM, yes.
Yes, for setting couches on fire. But okay, I got you. I feel you here.
I mean, I'm probably going to say that they're not as bad now as they were because they're not as good in the NHL as they were back in 2011 in that area. So, Vancouver Canucks, number 5 there in my most brutal fan bases. Your number 5, and this is brutal in the sense like you don't even show up to the games brutal, Kansas Jayhawks.
Well, twofold for the Kansas Jayhawks. And of course, anybody watching that knows me, I am a Kansas State alum, so of course, KU would show up. I couldn't not put them on here. But twofold. One, they are the "is it basketball season yet" fan base, and that's because it's sad how bad their football
visual
team
evidence.
is. And like, look, Kansas State football used to be this bad in the 80s, and well, pretty much every decade before the 90s and Bill Snyder. So I get that part, people not showing up. But they're also I didn't go to KU, but they have a really, really good basketball team, so I'm going to be a fan of them fan base. So KU, number 5 on my list.
And you have, I'm sure, friends from KU. I mean, do they
brother,
not like those kind of fans?
So my brother-in-law is one of those fans.
Oh.
He went to Washburn, a school in Topeka. But he is a huge KU basketball fan. Now, I will give him credit. He does follow KU football as well, even though they're really, really bad.
KU football.
It's not good for anybody that KU is that bad in football.
Right. And they're playing in primetime on Saturday tomorrow against TCU, so we'll see what
Why would they put that game in primetime? I don't know.
So Brett's number 5, Kansas, and same logic for me at number 4 here, Duke Blue Devils. All right, first of all, if you were born in North Carolina / you went to Duke, you're fine, go be a fan and enjoy it. But if you were that kid who's the Warriors fan and the Blue Devils fan and the Yankees fan, get out of here. That's why my totem pole at number 4 has Duke.
I think our very own Brian Ralph may fall into this. Brian is a South Carolina alum, but a Duke basketball fan. So
unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, just
we probably need to have him come on the pod to discuss.
He will have to come on the pod to discuss. By the way, one of my good friends from Maryland was a Maryland fan at the same time as being a Duke Blue Devil fan. Does that make any sense at all?
No.
Thomas Polano?
I mean, that used to be a rivalry in a way.
Right.
I mean, in the 90s, there's the two really good basketball
programs. Our signature saying in the crowd is F Duke. Like, we still say F Duke even though we're in the Big Ten.
Back to KU, that's the signature K-State chant right now, FKU, which causes all sorts of consternation between the old fogies of the alumni base and the students, of course.
So my number 4 there, Duke Blue Devils falling in, and your number 4, Brett, you got a little combo, Red Sox Cubs.
So my next 2 are combo fan bases for similar reasons, trying to stick in the stereotypes. So Red Sox Cubs, they were the lovable losers for a long, long time, and now both of them have won World Series in recency, and so the Cubs are this fan base that absolutely ripped this guy Steve Bartman.
Yep, of course.
Because Moises Alou threw a fit as if he was going to catch that ball, and of course, Cam, they would have won the World Series that year.
Heck yeah.
Of course they would have. Not to mention, hey, Alex Gonzalez, I think, booted the ball on like the very next play. Like, it's kind of like the Mets or the Red Sox and Buckner. Like, Buckner happened in Game 6. You still could have won the World Series that year. And so Red Sox, of course, I think back to the Jimmy Fallon movie Fever Pitch. Sure. There are a lot of fans that really sat through and suffered through the Red Sox toils for many, many decades. But now that they've won their World Series, it's like, well, aren't we just supposed to win the World Series every year?
Right, a sense of entitlement.
Exactly. Harris Rubenstein's looking at me. He's producing today. He is a Bo Sox fan. You are that guy. Harris, you're lucky I didn't put the Pats on this list, but I have a feeling the Pats may show up on this list
Foreshadowing
anyway.
alert. There you go. So Red Sox Cubs falling in at 4 for Brett Scott. Here's my number 3. Philadelphia Eagles fans, and I'm sure there's an argument to be made that they should be at number 1 here. Look, I looked at the history here. There was actually in the 90s an Eagles court, which was created in the old Veterans Stadium because of unruly fans that were essentially there. They actually had a jail for fans that were unruly during the game. And that court actually was a response to a 1997 Monday Night Football game that resulted in 20 arrests, Brett, and almost 60 fist fights. Philadelphia fans in general are brutal.
Fights of just among themselves?
Yes. And Philadelphia fans in general, most notably, the J.D. Drew throwing batteries at him because he didn't want to go play for the Phillies, etc. So, look, the Philadelphia Eagles
They booed
fans,
Santa Claus. I mean, it goes on and on.
Exactly.
It's too easy to put them on.
It really is. And it's a very chalky type of choice here with the Philadelphia Eagles fans. And look, I know they've suffered a little bit themselves, but you don't have to be cranky and mad and throw fists about it, okay? You had a shot with Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb back in the day. And hey, I mean, maybe it can happen with Carson Wentz this year. Who knows? But come on,
their insufferable level has come up this year because they are 5-1 and looking really, really solid.
Right. So there are the Eagles there at number 3. Another little combo here for you, Brett. Michigan, Ohio State.
Yeah, I went combo again for very similar reasons. Here's an entitlement fan base.
Yes.
Michigan and Ohio State national championships are just our thing. I'd love to hear what James Yoder is commenting right now. PSA, I am an alum of Michigan as well. So I actually got to witness all this. Now, of course, I was there during the Brady Hoke years. So I think it was elevated in a sense because they were just not relevant on the national stage. But Harbaugh has certainly brought them back. And it really hit a peak last year between these two fan bases with the JT Barrett play that we have the picture on the screen here. There were many, many different angles, all photoshopped, all everything. And you can ask either fan base what actually happened in that. Michigan, of course, the refs jobbed them. Ohio State, he made it by about 3 yards. So, Michigan, Ohio State sitting right there. And I think we'll see it play out again this year.
Oh, there you go. Stay tuned for that, folks, as we check in with my number 2 here in the totem pole, Oakland Raiders fans. And they're up here in the list because this one incident stuck out to me this year. So Donald Penn, he hasn't had a great year at his position on the offensive line and what have you. After the game, some Raiders fans were chirping Donald Penn. And Penn actually took it upon himself to approach these fans and, say, dude, what are you doing? What is going on right now? And overall, the black hole and all of that and the craziness with the Oakland Raiders, they've suffered pretty rough years in the mid-2000s, etc. But they feel like they are just like a dynasty because of the Al Davis just win baby type of deal.
Just win baby.
And it's like, okay, fine, but
I don't know. I gotta chirp back at you here, Cam.
Yep.
I like the Oakland Raiders fan base. I think they are diehard through and through. And they are rough around the edges, but I think that's what makes them amazing.
But you can't say that because they are rough around the edges. They got to be up here for that reason. By the way, they were involved in a brawl at the Coliseum in Oakland one time in 2014 that resulted in 31 arrests, 93 ejections. And by the way, the Raiders don't play the Niners in the preseason anymore because fistfights occur. That is actually a rule.
Wait, 2014, was that a Niners-Raiders game?
I don't think it was.
Oh, okay.
But, just another nugget there that they don't play the Niners. So.
Yeah, it's funny. The Niners and Raiders, that rivalry amongst people in the Bay Area is quite impressive. They really hate each other.
They do.
Even though they never play each other.
Exactly, really. And they certainly won't anymore in the preseason. So the Raiders checking in At number 2, again, keep throwing in your comments about those insufferable fan bases.
We do have a James Yoder comment. Did Brett use the photoshopped Barrett video?
Did you?
James, I actually thought about using the other photoshopped version with the crooked lines. That would have been a good one. But I think this one is non-photoshopped. It is the angled version, so you can't actually tell where Barrett is. I tried to go completely neutral on you there, James. Let's go to my number 2, Notre Dame. They were good in like the 70s and the 80s.
But they still think they're good. That's the problem.
Yeah, they're kind of back this year, so maybe
kind of trumps that argument.
But again, Notre Dame fans fall into the I'm Catholic. I didn't go to Notre Dame, but because I'm Catholic, I'm fans of Notre Dame.
Okay, all right.
So
yeah. I hear that.
Why? Like, there's plenty of Catholic schools out there. Go be a fan of Boston College.
Exactly. Or, there's got to be other Catholic schools too, right?
I'm
BYU?
sure.
No, that's not.
No, that's Mormon.
That's Mormon. All right, I get my religions mixed up.
So Notre Dame sitting here, relevancy is waned in college football, but they still have one of the most obnoxious fan bases out there.
Okay, now I softened the blow with a certain fan base at number 5, putting the Vancouver Canucks to put my Boston friends at ease. But now it's time to be on edge, if you will. My number 1 most insufferable fan base, the New England Patriots fans out there. And particularly the New England Patriots fans who all of a sudden become fans when it's January. And I start seeing social media posts, and I'm like, where have you been the last 17, 18, 19 weeks?
So
you know what I mean?
There are a lot of fan bases out there, and part of me appreciates this. They expect to win. And they just know they're going to win. The Patriots sit in there. I think the Alabama Crimson Tide fan base sits in there.
Yeah.
And they just are in hibernation until it's time to win championships.
And every year,
it's not always been like this. The Patriots haven't always been good. They've just been good for a really long time at this point.
Right. I mean, the 90s, they were brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some really bad years for really Boston sports fans in general in those 90s, et cetera. And with the Patriots, I have a lot of friends from New England, of course, being from New England, and I got a little rivalry between me and them, with me being a Ravens fan, them being a Patriots fan. I will say this, though, Brett Scott, one of the best moments ever. I invited a bunch of people over my house for Ravens versus Patriots AFC Championship game back in 2012 when Anquan Bolden rolled over the New England Patriots. And by the way, that was the year after the Billy Cundiff debacle. So I kind of felt better that next year. So, yeah.
I don't know that much about Ravens history, so I can't help you out there too
Fair enough.
much.
It was a nice shining moment when everybody left all depressed, and I was happy with the Ravens winning there. So there you go. Patriots at my number 1.
Not much of a drum roll for my number 1. We've already talked about the Philadelphia Eagles fan base. They booed Santa. They threw batteries. Well, those are the Phillies fans, but they all get lumped into one. And they're back this year. They are back 5-1. Our buddy, friend of the show, Jason, our NFL Daily friend of the show, Eagles fan. He's always in the comments. He called it.
About that team.
That's right.
So there you go. Eagles at number 1 for Mr. Brett Scott. Let's recap what we have here in the totem pole. Most insufferable, brutal fan bases. Patriots at number 1, Raiders at number 2, Eagles at number 3, Duke Blue Devils at number 4, and Vancouver Canucks fans at number 5. And Brett, I guess I could make the argument here that our lists are really about personal experience, what we've kind of been exposed to.
I think that's what something like this is.
Yeah.
Like, I could have easily gone up there as a Big 12 alum and just put Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas. Tried to work outside the box a little bit. But, I had Philly at number 1, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Ohio State as a combo fan base, and then Red Sox, Cubs as a combo fan base as well. And then the Kansas Jayhawks. That's like my most personal experience there.
So we have a weigh-in again, ladies and gentlemen. Throw in which fan base is the worst to deal with for you. Brett Scott, many thanks to you for coming on the show. Before I let you go, though, I want to ask you, Kansas State in Manhattan against Oklahoma. Any thoughts there?
I thought maybe last week with the TCU game, but they did not show up. And I think it's going to be a lot of the same this week against the Oklahoma Sooners. Too bad, though. Sad.
There you have it. Brett Scott, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back here on the Cam Rogers Show. Coming up, we're doing Week 7 picks. I'm picking every game on the Sunday slate. Stick around.